Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage where we're continuing mechanic repairs on my 1989 BMW 325 i30. Now in this video, we're going to be taking care of the remaining mechanical and some electrical issues that are left on this car. We've got a huge long list, probably about 15 things, and we're just going to run through them. But to start things off, we've got a large oil leak that we've got to repair. It's something that I kind of screwed up as I was putting everything back onto the engine when I did the timing belt. Let's take a look at it. So when I did the timing belt, I resealed a lot of things on the engine, and one of the things I resealed was the oil filter housing coming off the side of the engine. There's a couple O-rings in this system in order to seal it back up. I must have nicked the O-ring that seals up this plug on the bottom side of the oil cooler thermostat chamber. So there's just this circlip, and then this plug comes out, and then there's an O-ring on the inside of that. So I'm gonna have to get in there and replace that O-ring again and hope that that fixes my huge oil leak issue. For 5 minutes worth of running, check out how much oil has leaked out of the car. That's right, this pan represents all of the oil that has already leaked out, and again, that's only after about 5 minutes of running the vehicle, so definitely something that needs addressed immediately. Let's go check out the new parts. So what we have here is the new oil filter thermostat plug and O-ring, and then a circlip here. This is a pretty inexpensive part. I think it's like $12 or $13. It is from BMW. So basically there's a spring inside of that housing. When you undo that circlip, this pops out, and it's awfully hard to get this plug put back in there with the tension of that spring working against you. So I'm gonna try using a C-clamp this time, and hopefully I don't nick this O-ring when reinstalling it. Let's get to it. All right, with that oil leak now taken care of, the engine is now sealed up and ready to rock. Now it's time to hit that long list of things to take care of. I'm not gonna do many descriptions of the things I'm fixing just because there's so many, so we're just gonna tear through these and get them done. Let's get to it. If you remember back to one of the first videos I made, I mentioned that the antenna that was in the car had been modified so it never worked again and it was in this stuck up position. Well, I was lucky enough to find an original used antenna on eBay and I picked this up, as well as a new antenna seal grommet. So this is what seals the antenna against the rear quarter panel. I bought it as a known working antenna, so I'm just hoping that this thing works pretty well. We'll get this fitted up in the body and we'll test it. Let's get it in. The next thing we're going to do on the car is replace the fog light housings. If you look at this, you might think, wait, this car doesn't have fog lights. Well, actually, in fact, it does. Now, the reason it doesn't look like it has fog lights is because the previous owner, keeping with their tradition of completely bodging everything, has covered the fog lights up. The lenses became cracked at some point, and instead of actually fixing the issue, previous owner just put some sort of contact paper screen thing and then just painted over them to make it look like there's nothing there. But in fact, let's pull this off. There it is. These are original fog lights. They have the glass lenses. Technically, you can replace those lenses, but I've just gone out and bought new housings altogether. Now, these are aftermarket. They have plastic lenses, but you know what? They'll look right and they'll work fine. For the pair, I paid, I think, under $50, so it's definitely a value at that price. I also picked up some new bulbs for these lenses because I can already tell there's no way I can reuse anything going on inside these housings. So let's get to it. Alright, so next we're going to try and fix the 6-button onboard computer inside of this car. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so the LCD screen on this onboard computer is all sorts of screwed up. Liquid crystal has basically failed inside of there. So I looked around forever to try and find a way to fix this. There's some methods on fixing the 8-button onboard computer screen, but I had a very hard time finding anything related to the 6-button one. Well, eventually all my hard work and research paid off because I found a company that offers a replacement LCD screen to fix this thing. So let's take a look at that. All right, over here on the bench, we have the brand new LCD screen that we can swap out on that onboard computer. Now, this is made by a company called Partworks. They're a German company. If you hop on their website, you can order this LCD screen replacement for about $35 shipped to the USA. I can't think of a better deal out there. I mean, this will supposedly restore one of these onboard computers to brand new because basically all of them start having this LCD failure and then they get thrown away when really they can be repaired for only 35 bucks. So it came with some instructions on how to do this. Again, this will be my first time ever trying this, so hopefully it goes well and it fixes the problem. So let's tear into this and try and fix it. There we go. Looks like it's fixed. I'll have to figure out how to set the time on this, but resurrecting old electronics always feels good. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to try to repair is the gauge cluster on this car. Let's take a look at it. So as you can see, the tachometer doesn't work. However, the fuel gauge does work, and I know that the temperature gauge works, but I also know the speedometer doesn't work, nor does the odometer. Because right now I've put it into gear. I'm just kind of letting it run in first gear right now, and the speedometer doesn't move one bit. Something's definitely going on inside of this gauge cluster. So I've already gone through everything that I could think of as an easy fix to this cluster issue. I've checked all the fuses, I've checked the ground connections, and I've checked the power connectors on the back side. Everything's good to go. So really, that only leaves me with one option: to take the gauge cluster apart and see if there's any solder joints that need resoldered, or maybe even the SI board batteries need replaced. But the first thing we gotta do is take it out of the car and get it on the bench. Let's get to it. actually, after further review, we won't be trying to fix my existing gauge cluster. Let's see why. Over here on the bench, we have my old gauge cluster assembly. And I've taken it apart, I've taken the speedometer out, and I have resoldered every single connection on this thing for both the main circuit board here and for the speedometer and tachometer themselves. I've also gone through and taken out the SI board here and replaced the SI batteries in there as well. Now you notice there's a tons of little connectors. Nothing actually looked bad, but I went through here with the soldering iron and tapped a little solder on every joint just to make sure there was a good connection going on. I also went to the back side of these instruments and saw the circuit boards on the back side of there, and again reflowed all of those circuits that you see right there. Now nothing externally looks bad about these aside from the odometer gear being broken, but you'll notice the casing behind here is a little bit blackened, and I don't know if that has anything to do with why this failed, but can't imagine it's not related somehow. Now again, both the speedometer and tachometer did not work on this instrument cluster, but all the other gauges did, and the SI board did as well. So I plugged this back into the car after I did all this, replaced the SI board, batteries, and all that, and I had the exact same symptoms as before. Now the SI lights seemed to work better. I got all of the green LEDs going on, but again, the tachometer and speedometer still didn't work. So what more could I do to this thing, at least within the realms of my abilities? I didn't think anything was left I could do. So I went out and bought another instrument cluster. Let's take a look. So right here is a replacement instrument cluster, a known working one that I picked up locally from an E30 parts car for about $50. I thought that was pretty good value, and it would save me a lot of headache trying to resuscitate this old instrument cluster when I can just get in one that does work. The only problem is the odometer reading was different than the one on my car, but I've actually taken this instrument cluster apart, pulled out the speedometer, and actually reset the odometer so that it matches the old odometer from the car. I'm not going to show how I did that because technically that is illegal. However, the odometer on this replacement cluster was at 179,000 miles, which would be more illegal than resetting it to the correct odometer reading of 234,000 miles. I just want to most accurately represent the miles on this car, and I didn't want to have to add 55,000 miles to whatever the reading was on the odometer every time I went to do something. I've gone over this whole instrument cluster. Everything looks good. I replaced some light bulbs because some were burned out, but everything's supposed to work according to the seller. All that's left to do is just install it into the car and see if it really does. Now I'm really a little bit disappointed that I wasn't able to resuscitate the old instrument cluster. I really wanted to put together a video showing how to reflow one of those circuit boards and bring one of them back to life for as little amount of money as possible. But it just didn't work out this time. I just couldn't do it. So I guess let's get this instrument cluster put back in the car. So before I go through all the effort of putting all of this interior back together, let's turn the car on and make sure this gauge cluster actually works. Step one, lights are on, clutch in, here goes nothing. Alright, so we've got tachometer, and let's see if we've got the speedometer. Slipped it into second gear, and I'm going to slowly let out the clutch pedal down here. Alright, I see the needle moving. Alright. That's good news. Both speedometer and tachometer now work. Let's get this thing put back together. So with that wraps up all of the remaining mechanical and electrical issues that at least I know about on this car. Now, since we're done with all the big mechanical and electrical issues on this car, it's now time to focus on the cosmetic things that are left, like filling in the imperfections in the bodywork with filler and then painting it over. But that will be the focus of the next video. So until then, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys again soon.